Welcome to the Pro Insider Podcast. This is Eric G. from Around the House with Eric G. and Caroline B. And today, I wanted to replay an episode that we did over on Around the House because I think this is something that we should all consider in the building community. You know, job site thefts are a huge problem where everything from tools to cabinetry to HVAC systems gets stolen every day off a job site. As well as there's plenty of neighborhoods out there right now in our inner cities that are crime-ridden. Heck, even in my Portland, Oregon, we've got areas that I won't go in after late afternoon because it's so dangerous, let alone not looking forward to going to the day. Now, this security system can actually change that neighborhood because it's a proactive AI-sourced program. So they can see people entering the property, they can call the police, and the police can show up. Now, with police departments that are underfunded or not funded, that's its own issue. But at least the phone call is made and people can get coming. And you're going to get a decent response because it's a live person with an actual situation calling into the police. So here's our interview with Dave Sellinger from Deep Sentinel. And this is something we should all pay attention to. This is the wave of the future, guys. And I think it's going to change everything from job sites to, of course, our own personal homes. But I think neighborhoods as well, because you could put in a development in an area that was up and coming, install this on every one of the homes, and now that neighborhood has its own little security system around it, and it will prove itself to lower crime. Now, let's get into that episode, and let's take a listen.
And for me, security is obviously, like, I've got two little girls at home. I've got my wife. I used to travel a bunch before COVID. And security is something I thought I had nailed. I spend the money. I spend $50 a month on my alarm. I spent the money on the cameras. I am an awesome dad, father. And this cop just made me feel so incredibly small in that moment. And I realized he's right. I have been lulled into this sense of safety that is a false sense of security. And as I have dug in, I have learned that Deep Sentinel, not only do we stop crimes, we're designed to take this technology and stop crimes. We're the only company that does that. Everything else is creating this false sense of security.
It's Around the House. When it comes to remodeling and renovating your home, there is a lot to know, but we've got you covered. This is Around the House.
Welcome to Around the House with Eric G. and Caroline B. We talk about everything about your home every single weekend. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Caroline, how you doing over there?
I'm doing well. I'm psyched for our guest today. Amazing. He's amazing.
We got a great guest here in the studio. Dave Sellinger, man. First, let me say this. I jumped on your LinkedIn profile and did the deep dive and went, all right, man, this guy has done just about everything out there in home tech and everything else from Redfin to all this technology stuff. And now you've got this company, Deep Sentinel. Welcome to Around the House.
Welcome.
Eric, Caroline, glad to be here. I'm excited to chat with you. As you mentioned, right? I mean, I'm a homeowner. I've been a homeowner for a long time. I love stuff. I got my degree in robotics, and so that allows me to fiddle in electronics a little bit, lets me fiddle in mechanics a little bit, and mostly mess up my house so that my wife has me throw away old projects all day long. So that's who I am in a nutshell.
Whew, I'm not the only one.
Well, I mean, just to not put not too fine a point on it right now, I'm replacing my main meter, and I decided I didn't want to redo the stucco, so I took out the sheetrock behind it. And then I realized that the supply chain for electrical components is not so good. And so that sheetrock is still open in my living room and has been for a week. So, I mean, that's the life of being married to me, apparently.
Yeah, I've got some drywall stuff that I've got to get scaffolding in the living room to get in the ceiling. And I
don't have scaffolding in my living room.
I got to finish. It's up there. There's a layer of tape on it, but I haven't gone in, moved all the furniture, got it all ready to go up there and got scaffolding in there to get the rest of that. So my wife's been very patient.
I think if we could retitle tape to be trim,
nice.
Then it's finished. You just put the trim on.
There we go.
You're done.
I love it, man. Well, we're going to do some deep dive into home improvement here, but I wanted to talk about what you have come up with, a solution that has been my biggest pain around my house, because I've got all these different cameras and stuff. I'm not in a bad security area here. I'm in a pretty nice neighborhood. But I wake up in the morning, I grab my iPhone and I look at it and go, oh, wow, my Xfinity cameras fired off 7 times last night. My Ring went off 4 times. Is everything out there still? Because I'm not waking up every time a squirrel goes running across my driveway. And you came up with a solution
and
for
thank
this.
God you're not.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and not only that, I mean, like, so Deep Sentinel is the company that I started about 3.5 years ago. And that's exactly the problem that we set out to solve. Was there's technology out there, but is it really making us safer? Is it even really making us feel safer? Right. I mean, there's been some studies that the amount of alerts you're getting from your cameras actually makes you feel guilty, makes you feel anxiety. For
me. Oh my
gosh. I ignored those 20.
Totally anxiety.
Right.
Yes.
I feel bad. Like I bought this technology that made me feel good for a week and now makes me feel bad for the rest of my life. That's awesome. I want to spend more money on that. And what really brought that point home to me was I had this meeting, and as you mentioned, I'm a technologist. We had a neighborhood watch meeting because we had a break-in of one of our neighbors that turned into a home invasion, and she has cameras. In fact, she has like top of the line, multi-$1,000 PoE cameras installed in the walls. She has an alarm system, and she had a home invasion where she, was like locked in her house for 4 hours. The cameras have exactly what you expect the cameras to have. 20 minutes of video of these guys with masks outside, going inside, and then coming out 4 hours later. So we have the homeowners meeting with the police, and I have I'm the nominal head of our neighborhood watch. And I asked the cop, hey man, why didn't these things stop this from happening? Which is, by the way, that's the question that Deep Sentinel set out to answer. Why didn't these things stop these things from happening? And the cop looks at me and said, you just spent 5 minutes introducing yourself as the technology guy. What the hell did you expect the cameras and the alarm system to do? And it was this blank moment. I mean, I flushed a little bit. I felt a little bit embarrassed. I positioned myself as being really smart. And I was like, oh my God, he's so incredibly right. What are they going to do? And for me, security is obviously, like, I've got 2 little girls at home. I've got my wife. I used to travel a bunch before COVID. And security is something I thought I had nailed. I spend the money. I spend $50 a month on my alarm. I spent the money on the cameras. I am an awesome dad, father. And this cop just made me feel so incredibly small in that moment. And I realized he's right. I have been lulled into this sense of safety that is a false sense of security. And as I have dug in, I have learned that Deep Sentinel, not only do we stop crimes, we're designed to take this technology and stop crimes. We're the only company that does that. Everything else is creating this false sense of security. And let me just introduce you what Deep Sentinel does.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely.
So what Deep Sentinel is we're camera based. We're outside of your home, outside of your business. And instead of sending alerts to you, well, we do that. You can get alerts and stuff like that. We run the camera instantly within less than a second, about 250 milliseconds. Your video is going to an AI. And that AI is asking every single frame, boom, is there something suspicious happening? Boom, is there something suspicious happening? Doing that 20 times a second. Bam, 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 bam. As soon as it finds something suspicious, instead of just sending you an alert, it sends it to a trained guard. And that guard's job is within 10 seconds to intervene, stop that crime from proceeding, get that person off of your property, and if needed, engage the police. And so we stop 10, 15, 20 crimes a day. And our job, again, is stop them instead of letting them go. And, I could go into all the stats about alarms and these other technologies, but I think once you really ask yourself, what's it going to do?
Exactly.
You find the answer.
Right. I mean, that's just
great example. I mean, and I'm going to throw some shade on these guys because they're the McDonald's of them out there, but it can take me 10 seconds to open up my Ring app once I've hit it to get the camera to open up. And I've got a super high-speed internet connection.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of my very first observations when I really started digging into this was, well, what are we really going to do? When do you have to intervene to stop a crime? You got to be fast. And so the time it takes for our cameras to get from observing somebody moving to identifying a problem, that's 250 milliseconds, like I said, to actually having a guard view it, that's less than 5 seconds. You have a live person viewing your feed around your house, around your business, with the intention, trained, awake at 2 a.m. Let me just mention, by the way, 24/7. You are not awake at 2 a.m, I hope, or if you are, you're not looking at your camera. You're doing something fun.
Yeah.
And then they're intervening in under 10 seconds.
Oh.
And that, my friend, hearing someone at 2 a.m. say, hey, this is Deep Sentinel Security. What are you doing there? Hey, this is Deep Sentinel Security. Can I help you? That's what you need to put a stop to these crimes. And that's, I mean, again, I've got 2 little girls. This is a mission-driven company. My fundamental belief is everybody should feel safe, period. I think that affects our politics. That affects our interpersonal relationships. Everybody should feel safe. And this is the first technology that I've seen that can actually deliver on that promise.
Man, and speed is so key for that, because that's probably my biggest. And I do a lot of testing because, I do a lot of speaking for the big Kitchen and Bash show and design show every year that's in either Vegas or Florida for the Design and Construction Week. And I test a lot of stuff out, but that's been my biggest complaint is I'll install it in my house. I've got a great fast system. I've got a smart home hub that works well. Doesn't matter if I'm working direct off the app or what. It can take me 15 or 20 seconds to answer a doorbell or anything else around there. And to me, when time matters, that's way too long.
I mean, absolutely, right? And then if you look at it as a system, how many hours a day do you sleep? Let me give you a hint. It's greater than 0, right? And all of those times. That's why when you go on Nextdoor, you go on Facebook, like, hey, I caught this guy stealing my stuff last night. You didn't catch them.
No. Yeah. You documented it.
Congratulations. We have a T-shirt at Deep Sentinel. We'll send it to you that says, congratulations on catching that guy stealing your stuff. Let us know if you want us to stop him next time.
Well, that's the problem, though, is that all these camera systems, all you're doing is documenting the crime.
Yep. And when you've got people in masks, you've got people going super quick through your stuff. Let's look at the trend of crime. Like what's happening right now? Certainly burglaries occur, but the majority of crimes you're seeing are mail theft, package theft, auto burglary, theft from a driveway, theft of like copper, right? For all your DIYers out there that are buying electrical, holy smokes, is copper expensive. Yeah. Catalytic converters.
Huge.
None of these systems stop that stuff. And the whole key of the game here for us is prevention.
Nice. So what do you need to do if you're a homeowner and you're like, okay, this is for me? Do you need to have a special internet connection? What do you need to do to really kind of lock in a great service with? So
I mean, we do require a real like high speed internet connection. You've got to have at least 5 megabits per second upstream. And that's because we don't care about you downloading your Netflix videos. I mean, that's cool, right? Like go get your Netflix videos. What we care about is that video getting to a guard in less than 10 seconds, because that's what I promise you. So when you set up your system, if you don't have a fast enough connection, it actually won't even let you continue.
Cool.
Right? It will literally stop you in the install, say call customer care, because we promise you that we're going to stop these crimes. We need to make sure that you got that. So you do have to have a real high speed internet connection. But from there, what's super cool, you get this box, you get a hub that has the AI chip in it. You get 3 cameras, four batteries. You drill in 1 screw per camera and you're done. It's like 30 minutes. If you're an experienced DIYer, it's 30 minutes and you're up and running. And at the end of that 30 minutes, you're not looking at videos on your camera. You're waving to your cameras and you're hearing, hey, this is Jenny at Deep Sentinel. Thanks for setting up. I appreciate you trusting us with your business. I got you. Your cameras are set up right. I checked them all and you look awesome.
That's cool. I love that.
Dude, that is ridiculous.
That's our magic moment. I spent literally 18 months building our first product that we shipped, and all my employees hated me by the end of it, because it was like, no, this moment, everything is a build up to the moment where they set up their first camera, and instead of looking down at their phone to see if they can see the stream, they look up at the camera and the camera says hello to them, and it's a real person.
Dude, powerful.
Very cool.
Powerful. That's awesome. And there's not another system out there that does that.
Not at all, right? Like that's what we focus on, is that value prop. I mean, in fact, I was late joining you today a little bit. I'm sorry about that. And the reason was because my gas company was here to come visit me. They had knocked on my front door, and I don't get alerts actually for motion or anything on my cameras. I only get alerts when guards talk. And so I got an alert that there was a guard talking to someone at my front door. And after 1 minute, the guards will always intervene and say, "Hey, can I help you?" And he's like, "Hey, I'm just the PG&E guy. I'm sorry." But what was great about that was I know I don't have to worry about it. Like, I'm not having this stressful moment. My guards are, even for people that are supposed to be here, engaging them, making sure that they're taken care of.
It's so much
That is
better.
amazing. And since we've started talking here, my phone has kicked off 5 different alerts.
I never understood. Like, I never got into the Ring doorbell. I couldn't grasp the concept. I'm like, why do you want to know who's at your door? And with me, if you're a female and someone is at your door, I'm not going to go answer the door. So what's the point? Like, I just never got the idea of it. And this is so fantastic.
Man, Caroline, I don't want to be sexist in this comment, but I am going to talk about gender a little bit because it's important to us. I've got 2 little girls, and I think about safety so differently having 2 little girls than I did growing up as a male. And if I've crossed the line there, I apologize, but it's true. Like, it is a different ball game. And one of our first beta testers was a friend of mine. She's a single woman, and she was the reason our guards every day when they ended their shift, she was the reason they would be proud of their job. They would raise their hand and say, "I was the person that escorted her from her car to her front door today."
That's amazing.
And it's so rewarding. I mean, that's a job that matters versus, I mean, I'll pick on ADT a little bit here, right? If you have door and window sensors and your door and window sensor goes off, the people that work in their call center, let me tell you what their job is like every day. I look at the screen, I'm going to call Poughkeepsie Police. "Hi, Poughkeepsie Police. I have an open window at this address." "Okay, can you tell me anything about the crime?" "I have an open window at this address." "Is the person in duress?" "I have an open window at 123 Main Street."
Oh my God.
"Okay, cool. Is there a crime being committed?" "I have an open window at 123 Main Street." And I'll tell you, you know what police do when they get that call? Yawn. They'll register it. When they have in their dispatch systems, typically they have priority 1, priority 2, and alarm calls. And it goes into the alarm calls category because it's 95% false alarms. Cops don't want to respond. I'll give you a real call from Deep Sentinel. This is Dave at Deep Sentinel. I have a white male, approximately 6 foot tall. He's not wearing a shirt, covered in tattoos. He's banging on this fastener leaf 5 times. The homeowner is inside. He's armed and he's scared for his safety. Guy in tattoos, he was in handcuffs. This wasn't police response. In handcuffs, 2 minutes and 15 seconds later.
Boom. There you go.
Boom. And every single police department, every one of your buddies and friends that are cops, they're going to tell you that's the call that I'm going to respond. I'm going to flip my lights on. And if I am doing something else, I'm pulling someone over and giving them a ticket, it's their lucky day because I'm gone.
Yep. No question. And that is so, it's amazing. You can do that with that. And I mean, the technology's there, and I'm kind of laughing because you're the only one that's figured this out. In my house that I'm in now, I had ADT installed in here that was probably 1980s. And I tell you, 45 minutes with wire cutters and cleaning it all out. And, I got $7 worth of wire at the recycling place when I went there. But I'm like, yeah, no thanks. This isn't going to work for me.
I'm going to play devil's advocate. Do you mind if I do that, Dave?
Please, yeah.
So if you have how the system works, how are you directly connected to either the 911 system or the police system? And then, so say we went through this with the flooding, right? We had a natural disaster here. I'm in the Northeast. We had massive flooding, and you had all of these emergency alerts going off. And the problem was that we had people who actually died on the roads. I'm just using the roads as an example, but who died on the roads during floods because the system was so overloaded with calls that people couldn't get through. And so I'm just adding this as I'm just curious to know how your system's designed, and then what do you do if there is an influx of all these calls? Like, can you get through? Does it help to have, I'm sure it does, making the call, et cetera?
Yeah, so I'll answer that in 3 different ways. Right, the first one is we stop and do not escalate to police 95, 96, 97, 98, 99% of crimes. Most criminals go into a situation, you'll see YouTube channel, by the way, go to the Deep Sentinel YouTube channel, you'll see this day after day, second after second, hour after hour. most of the time when we say, this is Deep Sentinel security, I see you, I need you to leave the property right now.
They freak out and leave. They're just like, oh.
They freak out and they go. And that's because criminals are of the mindset, maybe I'm going to get caught. Maybe I'm going to get caught. Now, this isn't a siren usually. It's a person addressing you personally to prevent the crime. And so that's first and foremost, one of the things that, and I'll get into why cops love us in a second, but that's because we don't have to call them. Most of the time we're stopping things. Great. And by the time we call the cops, this is the second thing, we have a reason. We've told them, this isn't a stranger that I'm not sure of. He's in my backyard and it's a little bit suspicious. I've asked this person to leave 5 times. They're known to me and they're causing a threat. That is a call that when police receive it into their system, they prioritize it according to the information that they're receiving. And then the third thing is just a tactical bit. We tie straight into 911. When our operators are calling, we call straight into 911. We don't call into the non-emergency line. We call straight into the emergency line. We partner with one of the companies that actually runs the 911 infrastructure for almost all the police departments in the country. It's not like we quote unquote hop the queue per se, but we tie right into the places so that when speed is of the essence, we're the last thing I would add is, again, let's contrast that with our alarm company. So, I brought up ADT. We'll keep picking on them just because they're easy. They're the McDonald's, right? A lot of people, they believe that their alarm company has a special relationship with their police department and they're going to respond quickly. That is the general belief.
It's a marketing ploy.
In fact, we did a study and we did a poll of homeowners to get a sense of when do you think the police are going to respond? Most people thought it was less than 5 minutes.
Sorry.
The actual answer is most people live in a jurisdiction. Most Americans live in a jurisdiction where their police department is so fed up with false alarm calls from their alarm company, they have passed a law. They've gone to the city council, had the city council pass a law that states that the police department does not have to respond to burglar alarm companies. Many jurisdictions are actually involved in a special relationship with alarm companies called a lawsuit, where they're suing the companies. If you search for TMA, the Monitoring Association, this is the organization that ADT hides behind. Yep. They're suing Sandy Springs, Georgia. They're suing Seattle, Washington. They were engaged in a lawsuit in Orange County in Los Angeles because the police departments were saying, I'm fed up with this. I'm going to start fining you for false alarms. And they said, you can't do that. You can't do that. Well, yes, I can. Right? We're the police. We respond to calls when there's something going on. We don't respond to these non-events that you're sending us to. And especially if you think about police in this last year, they're under fire from a lot of different directions.
That's what I'm saying, right?
Oh, man, I live in Portland, Oregon.
I mean, it's tough. Yeah. It's tough being a cop. And it's not to say there isn't reform necessary, right? Like I'd be the last person to say that. But cops are threats. If you look at the Officer Down Memorial page, I don't know if you're a member of that. That's where when officers pass away in the line of duty, they're registered. COVID, 15 to 45 a month. The average month sees between 2 and 5 officers down across the country. COVID blew that up. So on top of all that, you have police officers saying, I don't want to go into situations where my career is going to be put in jeopardy over nothing. Well, what's an alarm call? An alarm call is 95% false alarm. You're being asked to pull out your weapon. You're being asked to enter a situation where maybe the best case scenario is I find a criminal, but all the other cases are I've pulled my gun out and I'm greeting the homeowner with my gun drawn. That's a dangerous situation for everyone involved. Deep Sentinel removes all of those risks for the police. We remove all those risks for the homeowner. We remove all those risks for the community. And that's, again, I said this before we got on here. I've got a chance to start a lot of companies. This one is my favorite and it's the most rewarding. I wake up every single day jazzed to go to work. I mean, I'm working in my home, so I go upstairs, right? But jazzed beyond all life to go to work because every morning I wake up to 20 emails from my head of security saying, here are the crimes I stopped today.
Dude, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And there's so many things out there that I'm seeing, the home invasions and all that different stuff out there. I mean, I lived in a neighborhood that had a home invasion and it was rampant in my neighborhood when I lived in Seattle.
Oh, it's scary.
And it's scary. And man, if I would have had this service back then, it would have saved me a ton of grief.
Yeah, I mean, what's rewarding there in that sense, my wife and I, we've been through a lot together, and I've started other tech companies that she thought were cool, but didn't care whether they went out of business. Like it didn't matter.
Yeah.
And, with every trial and tribulation with Deep Sentinel, she just looks at me and says, this matters to us. She hates cameras, by the way. She feels like they're creepy. She's like very private person. But when you view the trade-off of, okay, these are all outdoor when they're at my house. I'm not, just don't walk around outside naked or turn the cameras off. You've got privacy settings and all that stuff. The trade-off to feeling safe every single day, all day long versus that, it's easy. It's so black and white.
Yeah.
So for example, if you have like a driveway, do you point the camera so we get a lot, obviously we live in a country area, and then there are main roads that run through, and people like to pull in and steal cars, right? They try to get to your car. So would you point this camera at your vehicle, for example? And if someone was getting into it, would it alert them or,
Yep.
and how loud is it? Could they hear it from a driveway next to a home or?
Yeah, we've got, we build our own cameras for some of our customers. We also partner with existing cameras. Our camera itself has a 105 decibel speaker.
Ooh.
And so it's loud enough that you can hear it. I mean, and yeah, so what you do is you'd set it up. I have actually two in my driveway, but I have one in my driveway, and I point it right at where, and then I draw a box in the app around where our cars are. And that way, anytime there's a human being that's like around our cars, especially at night,
Yeah.
the guards are viewing it. They're looking. Actually, car burglary is probably our number one or number
It
two
is.
crime that we stop on a regular basis.
And it's necessary. Mm-hmm.
That's impressive, man.
It's cool.
It's great. I mean, I will say one thing though too is you get a view into people's lives. I got this call. We had a guy that was, and he's a professional reviewer, kind of like yourself, not as prolific by a good long stretch, but he's a professional reviewer. And he calls me at 9:00 in the morning and says, "Dude, you will not believe what just happened. Your guys just prevented my wife's car from getting stolen." And he has a Maserati, and she left her keys to her Maserati in her unlocked Maserati. Full stop.
I
Okay,
do that.
really? Okay.
I do that with my
Oh,
my
that drives me
Jaguar.
insane.
Not to be, I've got a very nice Jaguar, and I get lazy sometimes, and I will leave my keys
Oh my
because it automatically locks. That's why
Caroline.
I'm asking you.
Wow.
And that's the thing. You get a view into this and you're like, oh my God, people leave themselves so exposed. And he's like, dude, you'll not believe it. You guys set off the siren 10 seconds into the car theft and you saved it.
Wow.
And I mean, it happens. Like my wife does too. I'm sure I do from time. I'm pretty anal retentive though, so I don't do it very often. But you're blown away at how often these crimes of convenience are very much enabled by our view that I live in a safe neighborhood, so therefore X doesn't
You
matter,
think you're out
right?
on so many acres, and I've got a pretty large property, and I'm like, who's coming out here to steal my car? And then you hear, oh my God, someone up the street, their car got stolen. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm out in my car. I leave everything out there. I'm ready to go. Yeah.
And that's the thing that I like that we provide, right? It's like you can continue to kind of live in that sphere where you're like, I don't need to live in fear all the time.
Yeah.
And so for my house, I have a gate on the side that isn't locked. And it's by our bedroom. But what I do is I put two cameras. I put one in front of it, pointed at the gate.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody's kind of messing with the gate, trying to get in, it catches them on the way in. And then I put one inside of our property, pointed at the gate. And that way I do feel safe, right? I don't have to sit and worry about locks and things like that. I live my life, and I know that it's these guys' job to intervene in 10 seconds if anything's going on. And then again, like if something does happen and they're unable to de-escalate it, I get a call. You get a call within 15 seconds.
See, Dave, you do more than just keep us safe. You let us live. That's even better.
Dude,
I like
you're
that.
our new spokesperson.
Dave lets us live. That's awesome.
That's awesome. Well, I want to ask you about some of these DIY projects you got going on. We'll take a sidebar on this for a minute. Sounds like you got the gas company out there. You got power you're doing. You got a project going.
I have a lot of projects going on right now. My favorite project space is my RV. So I've got a Fiverr. And nice. I think that the reason I like the Fiverr is just everything's pretty simple, right? Your plumbing system's pretty linear. Your electrical system's pretty linear, and you can kind of mess with it without burning your house down too often. And so that's where I do the most. I do a lot of just like the hacks and stuff like that, add storage here, do things like that. That's definitely I will park my Fiverr in our driveway and live in it for a week, not because I have to, just because I can. So that's my
awesome.
safe man cave space. Right now, I've also got our backyard. We just finished putting a pool in. I'm building an outdoor kitchen and a pavilion. And that's what the gas is here for, is for the pool heater. And I'm putting some gas heaters in there. And then what else? What else have I done recently? And then I've got a bunch of DIY projects in here. You're in my office right now, where I've got a bunch of Star Wars stuff. Probably my favorite DIY project in here. I don't know how many people are actually going to be watching, but I'll show it to you.
Yeah, show it. We'll describe it for the people listening.
That is my BB-8.
I just saw BB-8.
So,
BB-8.
so when the first Star Wars previews came out, I'm not a big fan of the all the new movies, but I do like those ones. But as soon as I saw BB-8, I said, oh my gosh, I need to build that. So before they were out on all the websites where you could do it, I just said, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to stop my life for a couple weeks. I grabbed a bunch of Raspberry Pis and H-bridges and stuff like that, and I built myself a gravity-driven BB-8.
That's cool.
And that, that's kind of my life, and that's where my family misses me for a couple weeks at a time.
Well, Dave, I got a question for you, off topic, but what do you think about Boston Dynamics and some of those guys are doing with robotics?
So cool. So cool. I can watch those videos all day long. It's a little creepy.
The dogs dancing and that's...
Yeah, so I got my degree in AI and robotics, and the AI side of it's where you're like, ooh, wow, that could really do some damage to the universe. But the mechanical dynamics of what they've figured out, how to walk, how to maintain balance in a bipedal motion, it's really, really incredible. I mean, if you go back 10 years, there was a robot called the Honda Human. I don't know if you remember that. And it was the first bipedal, 2 legs robot, and it walked at just under 0.01 miles per hour. And it was considered this, oh my gosh, like revolution. And then you watch Boston Dynamics, like I'll run at like 15, 25 miles an hour, cutting through corners, up and down rocks, running through rubble, slipping and falling and getting back up. And you're just like, that was 10 years between there and there. Oh my gosh. And I mean, we live in a marvel of technology like that. Like we just had the first flight of purely non-astronaut tourists go up into space. And that only made the news cycle for like an hour and a half.
I know, right? Isn't that crazy?
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And somehow they got to fit William Shatner's ego inside a spaceship and have the power to put that into outer space. That's amazing.
Obviously they left some of it in space because when he came down, he was pretty humble in his speech.
I love that.
And I think the hard part was once they got enough thrust to lift his ego off of the planet, I think it just carried so much inertia, it just kept going, and it's halfway to Mars right now.
Just passed Mars last week.
Yeah, I mean, that guy, wow, that was amazing to see him come down and be, at a loss for words, first and foremost, and then to speak so humbly about the experience. It was amazing.
So I had fun that day when he did that because I was impressed, and and I love throwing shade at Shatner just because it's low hanging fruit on that. I
pretty low bar.
Yeah, I threw up on Facebook a video of him doing his chant of, how he did those spoken word albums of Rocket Man.
Yes. Familiar. Not proud.
Yeah.
but if we sent him into space to represent humanity, it'd be like bad moment for all of us.
There's better. There's better.
You guys, the guy's 90 going to space. I mean, this is incredible, right? Like you said, I mean,
but that's amazing.
He's 90.
That part's
God bless him. I mean,
really ridiculous.
I'm lucky. I won't be in a walker when I'm like 90. Like,
how many G's was it? It was 6 G's.
That's a lot.
It's like break a hip just going up.
Man.
You know what I mean? Like, seriously, he's 90.
Can you imagine back 30 or 40 years ago going, all right, hey, Buzz Aldrin, in 40 years, we're going to put William Shatner in space.
Yeah.
I would have loved to seen what that reaction was, right?
Buzz would say, I wish I had my flight suit on so I could just pee in my pants right now.
Exactly.
That's what he'd say. That's so fun.
It's awesome. It's awesome. That makes me laugh. But I mean, the robotics, I mean, we're seeing now there's those guys out there that are, with Boston Dynamics that are doing the hanging sheetrock with the robots and stuff now. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of stuff that we can do effectively, it's a combination of artificial intelligence, mechanics, electronics. One of the key things that a lot of people aren't aware of that's been going on in the background is something called material science, right? And you see this in the DIY world, right? Our materials are getting cheaper, well, except for the last 2 years. They're getting generally cheaper, they're getting lighter, and they're getting stronger, right? You got fiberglass, carbon fiber are kind of pretty visible versions of that. But in general, that's happening across the board in these things. And when you think about a robot, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, because we take it for granted in our body, is that when you go out 3 joints on your body and you're trying to bend something or express strength, is that you've got so much negative, mechanical advantage. You have a mechanical disadvantage because those other 2 joints are at so much stress to carry a motor that far out. And one of the things that's really, really happened underneath the covers here is that we've made these materials so lightweight and so capable, and then we've added AI to it, and then we've added really great electronics to it, stronger motors, that those things have all become possible. And it's one of the neatest things about robotics is that it's kind of a Renaissance art. It brings all those things together in the best possible way. And we're seeing advancements in AI that I could talk about all day long too, that are enabling this. I mean, the AI that we run at Deep Sentinel, which is vision-based mostly, what we're running in your house or in your business on this little tiny $300 device is better than the AI that the NSA had 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? On that for a second too. Better than what the NSA had a few years ago. It's just nuts.
Well, it's interesting with AI because I did a speech probably 2 or 3 years ago that I was doing for designers out there about designing and presenting to clients in virtual reality, for instance, and doing some of that stuff and using AI to help in design and trying to get us thinking about designing kitchens and really starting to do some of this stuff and presenting it where people could do it in a virtual world and mixing AI into that. It didn't get received really well because, I think people weren't ready for that. But I think when we're getting into building design and all of this other stuff, I think there's a lot of different things with technology that are going to change how we do things moving forward.
Well, I think we as a population are getting more comfortable with different types of AI. You've got like Amazon's recommendations that I think people now take for granted. They don't feel they're creepy. Whereas 20 years ago, that was one of the technologies I worked on when I was at Amazon. People thought that was super creepy at the time.
That's why
and it was an invasion of privacy.
I feel like there is this negative connotation when people think about AI. So, from your perspective that it so well, what do you feel like, what are some legitimate fears that people have? Like, I guess, what do you see could be potentially, a downside to AI? And then of course, what do you think is the biggest potential on the upside?
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about the two big ones that people talk about. The first one is like the AI gets so smart it launches a nuclear attack on us, right? And
I saw that movie.
And that's
I saw that.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen a lot of those movies, right? And that one's definitely something that I think is front of mind for a lot of people. That said, though, I think it's also pretty controllable, right? Like, don't ever put those things into the same systems, right? Yeah. And so that one I don't worry about too much. The other one is just that it becomes sentient and kind of surpasses us in our capabilities. I would be more concerned about AI taking over menial work for us, right? You mentioned hanging up sheetrock. And what I worry about more is like drivers, right? I mean, driving is a huge part of what keeps the American economy going. It provides great jobs to a lot of Americans. And I think we got to be prepared for the time when our automated driving is going to be better than human beings for a lot of these tasks. And so that's the one that I think about the most, is really, how do we change our economy? How do we up-level and retrain our population so that we can deal with these things that I don't think those trends are stoppable, right? Because if we don't build autonomous cars, I'll tell you, China will, right? And they're going to have a huge advantage over us. And then our goods are going to be too expensive. And then our services are going to be too expensive. We're just going to start importing more stuff from China. And that's the last thing I want to see us doing, right? I think we've got to have great trade relationships with China for sure, but like, I don't want to see that happening. I want to see us being very forward thinking about how do we think about our labor and our skill sets and our quality of life so that we maintain the things that make America amazing and keep those going. So that's my fear side. On the amazing side, man, I will, and I've called you man twice, Caroline. Sorry about that.
She's used to me. She's trained.
Girlfriend. There are a bunch of things that are really amazing with AI right now. The one that I think is the most life-changing, there are two. The first one is vision, and that's what we do at Deep Sentinel, and the ability to interact with all these videos and images that we see, and not just do simple things like saying this is a person or this is a dog, but identifying things like, hey, I think this is a theft. I think this man is assaulting this woman, or this man is committing a crime. And I think those are things that are on the possibility set in the next 2 to 3 years. And we're already starting to do experimentations on that. We're doing a job of seeing what that can do. The second one is as it relates to healthcare. And there are huge unsolved problems: cancer, the heart issues, ingrained genetic problems. And obviously these have negative sides too, as well, in terms of genetically modifying things. But Google 4 months ago called AI AlphaFold. And AlphaFold has figured out a way to solve a genetic problem. Eric, you mentioned VR, that we've tried to solve in VR for about 25 years, and we failed. And AlphaFold is able to figure out how genes turn into proteins.
Ooh.
And that means that you can start figuring out which are the wrong genes that are making this protein that's causing cancer, which are the wrong genes that are allowing coronavirus to spread inside of our body. And so it's unlocked this entire field of personalized medicine and solving for problems like genetic
Eric,
diseases.
I'm so psyched right now.
Cancer.
I'm psyched because
it is amazing.
So as a healthy home expert, right, my job is to go and investigate homes and find out all these toxicity, from contaminants to radon to mold to, it's endless, right? So it's like, if I could have something in a home that monitors, right? We talk about these sensor monitors all the time. And, I've dealt with overseas in China and creating these sensors, and these sensors just stink. They're not reliable. They can't think for you. The guy cuts the grass and all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, VOCs, my VOCs are up. I'm like, well, somebody cutting the grass, like, we need that piece to work with the sensor, right? To tell them, hey, it's okay. The grass cutter's there. Hey, it's okay. Your wife just sprayed Lysol in the house. Like, that's why these levels are slightly elevated. So I see so much potential with healthy homes, because that's where Eric knows that's my passion. That's my business for 25 years, getting people to really understand what a healthy home is. And I could see where that information that you provide could be really useful.
Oh my gosh, right? We've been joking around as a population with, late night TV commercials about fixing these healthy problems and, using whatever home remedy to fix that. This is real, right? This is actually unlocking the human chromosomes and figuring out, where do these proteins come from? How can I maybe, instead of applying a broad-based steroid, which is how we solve almost all problems of our autonomic system, which is horrible, by the way. You're also shutting down all of your resistance to diseases, by the way, when you do this. Really,
immunocompromised.
The tiny detail. Now we can be much more precise. We can say, here's the problem, and here's the gene that we need to shut down, and here's how we can shut it down, and here's how we can use your own genes to help shut that down. Like, the ability to actually unlock very specific points in our body that are getting exposed, or problems in our food. Oh my gosh, like, don't get us started there. We already mentioned McDonald's, but like, you don't have to click very far there to figure out what's going on with your food there. All those things become really amazingly possible with this next generation of technology.
You think about it in your refrigerator, for instance. We're not far away from you walking up and touching the front of your refrigerator door, and it knowing what's in the refrigerator and telling you what things you have in the refrigerator, what are your cooking options for what you have, and turning the stove on behind you and the range hood on, and starting the process or starting the oven, knowing what's in the refrigerator.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, and if you look at like healthy living, right? You have to be the biggest believer in this. Convenience is really, really important. My dad has diabetes, and the reason he eats sugar every day is because he loves dried fruit, and it happens to be right there. and he'll eat healthy if it's easy, but he doesn't. And so we've got to, I think, bringing intelligence to making our lives safer, more convenient, healthier. That's where I think we can just make a huge dent in the universe.
And I think on a side note too, I mean, we're pretty close, it seems, to helping people with spinal cord injuries and things like that, where we can, work around some of those damaged areas in our spine, where we're going to see people in wheelchairs are going to be pretty rare compared to people out there starting to get back into physical therapy and actually get back into walking again.
I hope so. I sure hope so. Right. I mean, and when you look at the body too, I mean, it's so complex. I would hope that eventually, and I don't know where you guys sit on this one, but that we figure out how to integrate the different types of being healthy, not just Western medicine, inject drug and like drown
Amen
it out.
To that,
which by
brother.
the way is amazing. Right? Like, that stuff's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, let's not get that wrong. But it is not going to solve our ills.
No.
We need to get in front of these things. We have to live in healthy spaces. We have to live in a space where we take care of our bodies. And the more tailored and intelligent that can be for us, man, I'm a big believer in that. I mean, and let me just be clear though. I think Western medicine is amazing. My dad that I just mentioned, he had a heart attack 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
And it was a life-threatening heart attack. Like he would be dead if that had happened 30 years ago. And because they were able to identify the heart attack at our driveway, they had the stent and the surgeon waiting for him at the hospital. By the time my mom got the diagnosis, he was in recovery, and he's recovered fully because of that. 0 heart damage.
Wow.
40 minutes from heart attack. So like, look, I appreciate and I'm a big believer in Western medicine. I just know that it doesn't solve all these other problems.
It doesn't solve everything. And that's what, as an indoor air quality professional for 20 years, we've been talking about COVID-19. You can imagine what my plate has looked like for the last 2 years of my life. And we, everybody's turning to big pharma for the answer. But we know in this industry, this is not the last pandemic. We know there's more to come. We know there's more viruses. Yep. And we've got to orchestrate and structure the houses so that, one, look at the AI intelligence. It tells us the sensoring systems are telling us what's there. And then we can provide the ventilation and the filtration to help deal with it. And it's not a one-stop approach. And nothing ever is. You know that as an entrepreneur, and myself knowing that too, right? So, but people are so hesitant to change. They don't want to embrace that wider viewpoint that it's a lot of different things that are going to make it work, not just one.
I mean, what's crazy to me, you mentioned something that's obviously timely relevant, is, I mean, COVID has disrupted our lives so incredibly much over the last 2 years. And we still, as a society, have not adjusted to fix the problems about why we didn't respond earlier.
That's right.
Right? We haven't fixed the problems in testing. Yep. We have not fixed all the problems in early detection from our medical information systems. We have not fixed our PPE supply chain problem. We have not fixed our masks are great, but like filtration is a way better solution and more scalable longer term, right? I mean, I have asthma, so our house is basically a surgery room throughout everywhere already. But maybe most people don't have surgical HEPA filters in every room of their house, and they probably shouldn't. Right. But I mean, like, those are the types of things that I am blown away at how resistant we are to that change. What you just said resonates so deeply with me, because a lot of the things that we have to change are systemic. They're not huge, right? But they are systemic. We need to make them proactively. And we have to start being able to prevent these things and detecting them early.
Yeah, it's kind of incredible. Like if you just look at cholera, and not to go off on this, but cholera was a perfect example. When we were combining our wastewater with our drinking water, we had disease, right? So what did we do?
Turns out.
Right? So what did we do? But we learned and we said, oh, hey, we've got to structure environmentally these things differently so we don't get disease. But here we're faced with COVID-19. We don't want to look at the environment at all. We're just looking at, okay, let's try to find this cure. But the old time, they looked at it, well, why don't we improve ventilation? Why don't we improve, the space that we live in? Make sure that we're having filtration. Like, it just blows my mind. We did it back then, and now we don't do it.
I mean, there's a bunch of different commentary about that one that we could go through. I mean, I would say this, and I think everyone of every ilk would agree that we have a society that needs to be brought together, right? And this is, I'll bring it back to Deep Sentinel a little bit.
Please do.
One of my observations about political schisms is, and I read this great book about Palestine and Israel, And it's this concept of a zero-sum game. When everyone feels threatened, when they don't feel safe, their willingness to explore the possibilities of what the future might hold goes away. They're unwilling to say, if I change, it could be better in the future. And so my fundamental belief of my personal contribution to this world and what I believe is that if we can help make people feel safe, I want you to feel safe in your political views. I want you to feel safe in your personal views. I want you to feel safe in your home and in your business. And if I can do that, we can open up an opportunity to come together as a country, regardless of our politicians. I think the other thing I hope all of us can agree on, whether you're on the left or the right, is that those guys don't do it for us. And
100%.
we got to be able to talk to each other, right? You got to be able to work this out together and then tell them what we want them to do instead of having them tell us what they want to do.
Yeah. My argument always has been with politicians is there's lots of money to be made by dividing us all. And
that's right.
That's how that works.
And so I want us to feel safe. I want us to talk to each other. I want us to work things out, and that to me, that all comes down to safety. That all comes down to health. If we can provide those things, I think we can have a healthy country regardless of our political system. And that's, I think that's something that's so important for all of us.
Amen, brother.
Yeah.
Amen, brother. Well, where do you see Deep Sentinel going forward? I know you probably have a lot of stuff that's under wraps and things like that, but do you have a vision of even taking it to the next level, even though that you're way ahead of everybody else right now?
Yeah, I mean, I have two things that I think are really important. Number one is that I think Deep Sentinel has to stay a private company. That security being private, especially when it's this type of surveillance security, I don't want the city of San Francisco or the city of Pleasanton, where I live, to have this stuff and this level of capability being applied this way. I want this to be about us protecting our homes. And so I think there being a better relationship between private and public, so that, like, I want access to the facial recognition of all of the criminals in the area, so my personal customers can be protected, right? And let the government do what the government does well, but keep this private. And I think when we get to the point that we can get that relationship and get a pervasive view and be making everybody feel safe in their homes, that's number one for me. The next one, though, is where I think we start doing these network effects, where I am protecting 10 people in our neighborhood, and that starts building on itself, and it starts changing not just the shape of my customers, but their communities. We just had a neat thing happen with a city. It's still kind of a little bit confidential, but one of the cities in our area here saw the impact that they had 20 businesses in their neighboring city install Deep Sentinel, and it changed the downtown, like fundamentally changed all the economics of the downtown. So that city passed a grant program to help their customers get it everywhere. And that sense of like pervasive safety, where it's not coming from the government, that to me, again, that's just a game changer in terms of the way that we treat each other, the way that we interact with each other. I love that concept. And I think it's really important that it not come from a governmental agency, and that it be a pervasive sense of safety of us protecting ourselves and us protecting each other. That to me that's an ideal outcome for me. So there's a lot of different technology that we're developing. We've got, like I said, some AI that helps detect specific types of crimes. We've got AI that help kind of identify those things way before they're helps that scale out much faster.
Man, no kidding. Because, for instance, right now I live outside of Portland, Oregon, and I love this city here, but with the condition of things downtown, I don't take my wife down there for dinner anymore. We stay local just because I don't want every time I think of going down there, even for an event, I go, oh man, am I going to have to file a police report and get the window in my SUV fixed? Am I going to,
Or windows?
Yeah.
But I mean, if you park too long.
But you know what I mean? I mean, it's just one of those things that it's like, oh man. And having that in an area makes a heck of a lot of sense, because all of a sudden you can instantaneously change the reputation of that neighborhood by just stopping that crime, so the police have something to react to and can make a difference.
Yep, that's exactly right. Right. I mean, and I mentioned that one of the things that the police love about us is that we don't call them to respond to a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, like we have these businesses that have a homeless problem in their area, and the homeless people are leaving stuff in their doorway, and most of the time they just go away. Right. And it's cleaning up the neighborhood without having to use force and having to use this highly contentious confrontation to resolve it, where, just to be frank, right? Like if I were a cop, I'd be bringing my gun to that. But if I'm the other person, like I don't want to have somebody with a gun dealing with me just moving off of a property. And so it's a win for everyone that the community is not having to have that type of a confrontation at all. And I think the more and more that we can do that by doing prevention instead of reaction, man, just things get better and better and better.
Man, no kidding. No kidding. Well, Dave, is there anything that we haven't talked about today that you wanted to touch on, man? Because this is good stuff.
We grabbed everything. I could talk about all my DIY projects, but then my wife would probably listen and then she'd find out about them and they'd be done. So
The last thing we want to do is add on to that honeydew list that is already probably pretty long, like everyone's in the United States right now.
It's not too bad. I mean, I got it down from 400 pages to 350.
Dude, nice.
Yeah.
I'm jealous. I am jealous. So where's the best place for people that have listened to this going, I got to get this? Where's the best place for them to go?
Well, certainly you can go to our website, which is deepsentinel.com. But my favorite place to share about Deep Sentinel is our YouTube page. And that's because it's just legit videos. Every single week we produce a video of some of the best crimes that we stopped that week. And it's they're all 100% real.
Nice.
Right. And these
That's
are the
awesome.
things that
it's like watching Cops, Eric.
Like, I wish I could do that.
It's like I can go on there and just watch Cops all day. That's great.
I mean,
it's real. Like,
we have people that have watched all of them. Let me just be clear. But that's why, and it's real. It's not, none of it's made up. None of it's dramatic.
No
or
sensationalism. It's real dirt.
Just stop these crimes. Get these people away from my property.
How cool is that? How cool is that? Dave, thanks for coming on today, man.
Dave.
You are always welcome back on Around the House. This has been a great time with you today.
Yes.
Thank you, both of you. It's been a blessing and very, very fun.
I'm Eric G.
And I'm Caroline B.
You've been listening to Around the House.
Let's be lovers. We're